last time we talked about Jefferson being in office. We have a major shift in political powers going from the Federalists to the Democratic Republicans, right? We had the Revolution of 1800. If you guys remember, it was not necessarily a revolution, but it kind of was in the fact that we had a peaceful transition of power between the two major parties. Now, first of all, guys, what's wrong with that whole picture? Who was president before Adams and Jefferson and told us not to have political parties? George Washington. That's correct. So the bottom line is we really weren't supposed to be having this type of division in our government, right? But nevertheless, they started, and now we have two distinct parties. If you guys also remember that Jefferson, when he took over, Adams trying to keep the Federalists in power and their policies in power, what did he try to do? What did he try to do? And we had a major Supreme Court case that came out of this. He tried to do what with the courts?
He put his own people in before, like, Jefferson took place.
That's exactly right. So he tried to pack the court with Federalists, put them on the bench so that they could continue to keep going with the Federalist policies. Jefferson said, no, thank you for playing. We're not having that. And so we had the case of what v. what come up? Anybody remember?
What's his name?
I'm going to give you a hint.
Marshall.
Oh, you're thinking of the Marshall Court. Awesome. He was the Supreme Court Chief Justice. Yes, yay! Marbury v. Madison. Okay? Right, now, I told you guys all the ins and outs of keeping the appointments and things like this. But what was the major thing that came out of this? It gave the Supreme Court the power to do what?
To look over the laws.
Yes. And when they looked over the laws, they could declare them what or what? Yes. Very good, y'all. So this is called
Judicial review.
Thank you. Judicial review. Giving the power to the Supreme Court. That's not in the Constitution. It came from case law. Do you see? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes.
With judicial review, did it also give us the power for checks and balances? Or
That's-
is that later?
That is exactly what that does. All right, because look, I'm going to draw my little constitution here. My powers, okay? So we've got the legislative branch, lawmakers, we have the executive branch, the president and his cabinet, and we have the judiciary, right? These guys are not supposed to be crossing these lines, you know? It's like, get the hand back. Get back over on your side, right? Because they're not, none of those branches are supposed to have that much power, right? So this way, if the legislature is going way out here, all right, who's going to keep them in check?
Executive.
Well, the executive can always veto their laws.
So
That's one.
judiciary?
Now the judiciary can because of this. Okay? So yes, ma'am. Great observation. Judicial review also reinforced that checks and balances. It's like, you get out of line, Congress, with your laws. We get a chance to look at them, review them, okay? And we can strike them if we feel like they're unconstitutional, like, get back over your line. So we have this surge of nationalism. Hey, we're Americans, right? And what is nationalism? Tell me.
Proud of your country.
Yes, and is it just, I'm proud to be an American, thanks, I'm gonna go on home now and watch Netflix. Nationalism is intense.
Like putting flags up.
Yeah, well, putting flags outside your house, and sometimes, as in the case of the outbreak of World War I, people ready to go fight, okay? Now, I'm not saying that that's what the case was here, but the bottom line is, it is an intense feeling of pride for your country. Yes, has it started wars? Yes, it has, right? Because it's that intensity, it's that fire, it's we're Americans, instead of I'm American, right? And so this era that Monroe is president has come to be known the era of good feelings. Everybody's feeling great. Everybody's on top of the world. What types of things were growing besides our geography? Think about all the things that would be related if we doubled our country's size. What else could grow with that? The economy, money, absolutely. In what way? What? National banks. We're going to have banks going up all over the place. Are they always going to be successful? No. No. In fact, we're going to have a little panic on our hands, a little economic panic during this time, which is sometimes why people are going, I don't know how good these feelings were during this time. You know. But we had the economic growth, all right? What else? What do you need to increase your economic growth or economic growth? Economic growth. So you got to have people, right? Folks. What else? Jobs. Got to have people work those jobs. What else? Y'all just told me we gained access.
Trade.
Yes. Yes. Trade up and down the Mississippi and other places. But what do you need for trade within the country? We need land. Ports. We already had the ports, but that's okay. We need to include them because we're not throwing them away. How do you get around on land?
Oh,
Thank you.
Your feet.
Yeah, yes, on your feet.
The horse.
All right. Yes, so transportation. Now, we have gained access to the Mississippi River, to the Great Lakes. We're going to start needing to build transportation modes to get up and down those rivers. You guys, what types of things would we use here?
Boats.
Yeah, we're going to have steamboats. Roads. Now, when I say roads, guys, I'm not talking about major highways. I'm not talking about I-35. Not yet. Okay? But yeah, Loop 820. No, this would be like Loop 8 dirt. But nevertheless, we do have these major advances in our type of trading and in our type of transportation, right? And would you guys call these technology?
Yeah.
Of course. Guys, back in the day, pen and paper were technology. They were the technology of the day, right? Don't laugh. They didn't have cell phones. Okay?
They had the pony.
Little pigeons.
Yeah.
The pony.
Carried, yeah, Pony Express.
Messengers.
Carrier pigeons. Yeah. All right. So look at this. Can you see how this could create a great spark of nationalism in the country?
Yeah.
Okay? And talk about, look what we got. Look what we have. We were just a little pipsqueak country being ruled on by England, being ruled by England, dominated, in fact, oppressed by England, right? And we fought them, and we won, and then we thumped them again in the War of 1812 and said, go back. And now look what we have. Okay? So Americans are feeling pretty good during this time. Okay. Y'all remember Henry Clay? I told you he was a very long career politician. He won't be president. Okay? But Henry Clay is going to play a major role in our economic development during this time. I want you to think about the expansion of government power. Expansion of government power. Now, how can they do this? If it's not, well, but if it's not written in the Constitution, those enumerated powers, how can they get away with this? Yeah, it doesn't say I can't. So what are they relying on? What clause? The necessary and proper clause. Those elastic powers that let them come outside of the Constitution in that gray area, okay, to be able to take on these types of projects. So Henry Clay saw all of this development going on. And what he wanted to do was have the federal government take on internal improvements, okay? Which would mean jobs, trade, development of land, keeping up with the ports, coming up with new transportation systems, etc. Another big one, guys, we're going to get to our canals. We're going to have the Erie Canal, which is up there, the Great Lakes area. y'all know what a canal does? Y'all know what the Panama Canal does? Okay, it's not just like a river where you wee and go through with your boat, right? You have to build a canal. And you can't just tunnel through because all the dirt will fall back in. Have y'all ever tried to do that and then all the water comes in? It doesn't work. All right, so how are you going to pay for all this? Taxes. Okay, tariffs. That was part of his big economic plan for the American system. Now, think about it, guys. We have had high tariffs in the past. We had the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, remember? Who gets angered by the very high tariffs? Well, first of all, let me back up. Yes, the farmers. Why? Why? Who are they predominantly doing business with? Especially the cotton growers. Who are they sending their clothes, cotton over? The textile industries. There was one huge that was trading predominantly with whom? Across seas. Overseas. Yes. Britain. Okay? You put in these high tariffs, Britain's going, oh, that's kind of expensive. Right? We don't want that. And so the Southerners felt like they were being forced to trade with Northern industries, right? Northerners loved it. They liked it. They were like, yeah, cool, we like this high tariff, right? Plus, it's paying for all of these things. This is awesome. South's not going to be real thrilled about that, right? Didn't I tell you that learning the colonial regions is going to be important because we keep talking about all of these different impacts on them, okay? National banks, their strengths were increased. Their strength was increased. Remember, there was a big old debate about even creating the bank. Who wanted to create that bank?
Hamilton.
Yes, Hamilton wanted to create the bank. You see down here, compared to Hamilton's economic vision, does this look familiar with him? It sure does. Okay? Increasing federal power. Okay? That's not to say that Monroe was a Federalist, but he was trying to, or Clay for that matter. But that does mean that he did want to expand the influence of the federal government. Supreme Court reviewing this. Do you see how, and I am going to add this up here because I want you guys to know this. Do you see how there is an expansion of congressional and judicial power here? All built on that nationalism. We're Americans. And now we got a government. And that government is going to protect what we have. So it just, like this, with federal power. The Monroe Doctrine. Key points were this. What did George Washington tell us besides no political parties? No foreign entanglements. We don't like y'all. Oh, that's not even working. We don't want to come over here and bother y'all and get all up in your business. Okay? So, what Monroe did was kind of draw this line around North and South America. And he said, no more Europe colonizing in North and South America. I mean, if you're already here, cool. Just don't start anything, if you know what I mean. All right? Because otherwise we're going to consider that a threat, and it's going to go down. Right? But what would we do in exchange? We're not going over there. Y'all sit there and fight each other all you want to, which they have been since the dawn of time, right? We all know that. So, we are not going to interfere with them, but they ain't coming over here and starting anything, right? And we still go by this, guys. What if somebody started coming around and like planting big major missiles in Cuba? Would we have a problem with, where's Cuba? Where is it? Right here? Here's Cuba. Looks like a shoe. But anyway, here's Cuba. You start putting missiles here, right? Yeah, you say that battleship, right? Guess what, guys? During the Cold War, after World War II, that's going to happen.
Oh, the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yes, the Cuban Missile Crisis. You're awesome. You don't know what it is. You do now. But that's exactly what it is. And we had to put a stop to that. Why? Because you're not coming over here, Russia. Okay? And putting stuff in our territory. Especially things that could wipe out like millions of our people with atomic weapons. Okay? So, this is the Monroe Doctrine. Again, major foreign policy shift for America at this point. So we have this huge nationalistic type of federal government, increase in their power, increase in the judiciary power, okay? And now we have the Monroe Doctrine. You see America's going, I'm American, here I am. I'm in the world. Notice us. Okay? Better take notice. So here we are, right? Okay. Any questions? Woo! Now I have a good thing for you. We have gotten into this debate of slavery. Actually, it has been. So we're gonna do a philosophical chairs.
Yes!
Yes! Freaking love those.
Okay, so, but y'all know the rules, right? Only, see, Ray, it doesn't matter if you know the rules or not, you ain't gonna play by them. So anyway, I'm just kidding. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. This is the dividing line. I'm gonna pose a question. One person from each side talks at a time. Don't all sit there and talk to each other because you ain't gonna be able to hear what's being said on the other side. Okay? Yes, right here. This is the line that was drawn in the Missouri Compromise.
Wow,
Which is really kind of funny because it's related to my question.
Are we the South or are we the North?
No, I ain't got beat. All right, here's my question. Here's my question. And I want you guys to think about it and don't think that, don't start doing that. Think about it, and then we're going to have a very calm debate. Is there such a thing as a good slave owner? My yes folks are over here. My no folks are over here. Heads over here. It's heads.
Yeah!
All right.
Yeah.
So, you guys get to start off with the first comment. Remember, nobody talks while somebody else has the floor, okay? Because you can't hear. Go.
Okay, so I say there's a such thing as a good slave owner, considering the fact that some of the slave owners did treat their slaves correctly, but then again, they didn't have the choice of not being slave owners. Like, some of the states couldn't not own slaves. And I think it would have been better for them to own slaves, because slaves trying to escape got more punishment than slaves that had actual slave owners. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you were owned by somebody, if you were owned by somebody, they had the right to treat you good or bad. If you tried to escape and someone found you, you would have been worse off than a good slave owner. You know what I'm saying? Y'all get it?
Yeah.
So you would have been punished
Your
way
conditions
worse
would've been worse.
than having an actual slave owner.
Okay.
Oh, y'all want me to go? I don't think there's really a such thing as a good slave owner per se. I mean, they may have done good things, like not treat slaves as bad as others, but it's still discriminatory to have just like a person of color working for you doing your work. Like, why couldn't you do it? Or even your friends, like, get together, like, it's just discriminatory, so, and it's still not good, even though they may have done good things.
Can I say something? Okay. I think that there is such thing as a good slave owner because some people didn't have a choice. Like, we were forced into slavery, and I know that some Europeans didn't want slaves, but that's why they treated them as equals, because they didn't necessarily believe in it. But since our government said, well, the South has to be slave states, then you had to own a slave. It's not like you had a choice. And going back on Sierra's point of if you owned a slave, like, some treated them as equals and treated them as if they were granted freedom even though they didn't have it, while others, they wanted to be free so bad that they tried to escape, but their conditions were worse off, especially if you escaped from a good slave owner, because then if you found, then that's the price on your head where you could go to somebody else that treats you like dirt.
I have, you want to talk?
Do you want to talk? Alright. Okay. I think. Okay, so of course there's good in a philosophical viewpoint. Good has many different types of definitions, but at this point of view, I don't believe there is actually a good slave owner, because at the end of the day, they were treated as a thing because they were owned. So it's not. I do understand there may have been some laws where you were forced into like slavery, and there were some people who treated those slaves, well, those people, better said, as equals and as better, in a better place. But in general, they were just treated as things. So I'm speaking in the general viewpoint, which is just like they were not treated equally. So I don't really believe there was a good slave owner, because at the end of the day, they still treated them, they were still forced to do like labor. So, and they were still forced to be like doing things they really didn't agree with.
Danae? Let's make sure that everybody speaks before,
You speak again?
yes, before you speak again.
Okay, to
Thank
go
you.
off of what Tanya was saying, like saying that they weren't treated as like people, kind of back with Sierra, some of them were, like some of their slave owners like increased their pay, or like they gave them better living conditions, or even made sure that they ate every day. So I feel as though like the whole slave owner thing is kind of like a stereotype that all slave owners are mean. Not all slave owners are mean, because some people like cared about the people that were doing their jobs for them. Yeah, there's bad ones, but there's also some good ones. It's like people, like actual people. There's good people, there's actual bad people.
It's like, okay, so let's say in today's world, you get kidnapped.
Oh.
That's basically what it is. You're
Yeah.
being taken from your life.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say your kidnapper is a nice kidnapper, and they feed you, but you still have to do all the things that they tell you to do. You may feel like they're a good person, but you're not free.
In the South, they had to, they owned slaves. Like, it was the law. Like, not the law, but the slaves couldn't be free, so they knew how ugly the world was out there. If you were a slave owner, you go out to the world and you were a good slave owner, and they go out there and they see the world and they see their friends owning slaves, and they see how they abuse them, and they like physically hurt them till they work them to death, literally. And these slave owners, some of them were good because they saw how ugly the world was, and so they treated them better. And maybe that's not a good slave owner, and to your eyes, maybe, yeah, they still had to do work, but they were good in a sense that they didn't kill them because they ran away, or because, like, they did something bad, like, they stole a little more food than they were supposed to. They still worked, and they still treated them better than what other people were doing.
Good job.
Reese Faye, I want to know why you changed sides.
Me?
Yeah.
Not the baddies.
You won't cry.
I just think, okay, if you're a slave owner, I mean, yeah, you're gonna work with death and stuff, but like, it's still wrong of them to do it.
Going back to Giselle's argument about the kidnapper, technically we weren't kidnapped. We were traded off between each other. It was other tribes trading off. Yeah, it was other tribes trading off to the Europeans. And then, to piggyback on what you said, I think it was Paige, they said they have these people doing their work for them. Think about it as a job. You have some jobs that are minimum wage, pay low, and have terrible bosses. And then you have some jobs where you do your work, or you do what you're supposed to do, and they give you raises, increases, back to what Danae said. You have those different people. You can have people that treat their workers like crap, or you can have people that treat their workers as equals, see their side of the situation and see how things are going and pay them according to. Slavery, well, not that it was bad. Okay, it was bad. It was bad.
It wasn't very good.
The slave owners the good slave owners did what they could to make it, I don't know, not better,
Tolerable?
but tolerable for the slaves. Like some slaves got paid, yeah, like then they said paid higher, got better living things, and then some slave owners even sent some of their slaves like to school or taught them how to read or stuff like that. But then again, some of them were like, you can't have them reading, you can't do this. But it wasn't because they didn't want them to learn, it was because what they thought the other slave owners would think of their slaves. So in those cases, yeah.
But a job, that's like voluntary. Like, you could always quit working at a crappy place. But when it comes to like slavery, you can't just do that because you would be in worse conditions. But at the same time, I feel like there's not such thing as a good slave owner, because if you really don't want these people to have to do this or be treated like this and this and that, you will like fight for them. Like, no matter what your friends say, if you really believe in it, you will fight for them to not have to even be in conditions that they don't want to be in.
Todd.
Yes, thank you. Okay, going back on your point, let's view it in today's society where we're African American and females, right? And we're fighting for a voice. We're one person, we have to band together, and just because we band together doesn't mean that what we want is going to get said. Take the past election for an example. So I feel like that even if they did fight for what they want, the government wouldn't have listened to them, because this is what it is, this is how it has to be for population's sake. And we're a brand new country, so we're trying to figure out the ins and outs of compromising and trying to figure out how to make our country stable so we don't end up falling and end up owned by somebody else because we just got our freedom. So backing off of what Sierra said, the slave owners did what they could by treating them as equal, by teaching them to read and how to write, how to say their vocabulary, how to be an educated black person, no matter what the consequences was, because they cared about us. Like, their skin color to them didn't define them. It was them as a human being, and that's just how they saw it.
Problem is this.
Oh no. Just like Giselle said, the kidnapping.
Yeah.
Like, it's still not a good thing.
So,
Yeah.
again, a lot of you guys focused in on this, on the good, which I understand that, right? And because that would be the type of thing. But what do we call this in English? A good slave owner.
An oxymoron.
Yeah.
There you go, Jay.
Woo!
You heard me.
She called you an oxymoron. All right, but do you see that? Okay, but you guys all made excellent points. Okay, nice job.